Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. First, folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about the unemployment numbers that's facing Black women. Folks, the unemployment numbers have actually gone up for Black women in various industries across the country. And so we're going to just have our culture crew member, Suzette Speaks, and Sinead Wakorfor, to share their thoughts about this trend. Also, let's talk about how a descendant of a lynching victim actually makes history as being the first Black woman on the Supreme Court justice in Michigan. This is a fascinating and historic story, and it's one that speaks to the resilience of Black folks in this country. We'll have that conversation. Later on, I want to talk about all that happened with the Golden Globes and what was that hosting situation with Gerard Carmichael all about? I'm going to share with you my thoughts, and of course, we're going to hear from you and our culture crew members about that. And then Mariah Carey is asking for full custody of her twins in light of the fact that her former husband and baby father, Nick Cannon, has too many children. So I'm asking the question, well, who defines fatherhood? Is it the mother or the courts? We'll talk a little bit about that as well. So stay with us. All of those conversations up next here on today's edition of The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon and being ready to join the conversation. I'm very, very excited because I got two dynamic people. Folks, I always enjoy having these major conversations with. We're going to be joined by culture crew members, Sinead Wakorfor, who is our diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, our brother. He is an activist as well and doing some great works in various areas. Then we're also going to be joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks, who is a TV host, and she's also a certified board licensed attorney, and she is going to be checking in from the state of Florida as well. Folks, I want you to join us in the chat. Make sure you get ready to hit us up. Let us know what you think about all of these conversations that we're going to have today. Make sure you join us in the chat as we're streaming right now on YouTube and on Facebook and definitely on Black Star Network. All right, let's jump right into it. First and foremost, let's talk about this issue of unemployment. Now, a couple of days ago, we talked to economists out of Howard University, Dr. William Spriggs, talking about how jobs have actually leveled out and have gone back to pre-pandemic levels. However, that doesn't take away the fact that in Black America, we are still hit, not just from COVID, but also other issues. And now industries are now hurting as a result of it. And more particularly, Black women workers are hurting as much. Take a look at some of these numbers here, folks, that we got for you. And then we'll have an analysis from Sinead and Suzette. Take a look. This is what we got from the latest from the GRIO. It says that as reported by CNBC, unemployment for Black women increased from 5.2% to 5.5% from November to December, as Black unemployment remained a consistent 5.7%, and Black male unemployment dropped from 5.4 to 5.1% per data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, despite improvements across multiple labor markets since the beginning of the pandemic, industries that had an overrepresentation of Black female workers have either shown minor gains or have simply not recovered to pre-pandemic levels. Now, Michelle Holder, who is a senior fellow at Washington Center for Equitable Growth, told the outlet. Now, these industries include government education jobs, such as university positions, which are down 24,000 roles due to strikes, according to the outlet. Now, industries such as leisure and hospitality, I want to share this with you very quickly. Industries such as leisure and hospitality, additionally, have an overrepresentation of Black female workers. Holder said that according to Ms. Holder, 932,000 more jobs in the sector remain vacant when compared to February 2020, despite rising by 67,000 in December, per the report. Now, she said those are two industries that have not recovered well during the pandemic. This is what is constraining Black women's ability to get back to the state that they were with regard to the American workforce before the pandemic. I want to check in now with our culture crew member, Suzette Speaks, TV host and attorney, my brother, Sinedu Wakorfor of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Specialist. And let's talk a little bit about the state of jobs for Black women. Suzette, Sinedu, good to have you both on. How you feeling this afternoon?
Excellent. If we didn't see you last week, Happy New Year, everybody. Good to be back.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Suzette, let's start with you with this one. When we're looking at this job situation, first, are you surprised by these numbers, especially the number around the fact that Black men unemployment have actually gone down and then Black women are going up? Are you surprised by that?
Not really, just anecdotally looking around. I think, again, as you pointed out with that clip you used, there are industries that are disproportionately more prone to not coming back as strong as we need them to. And they also house a lot more Black women. When we look at education, when we look at government workers, when we look at other industries like hotel and hospitality and frontline workers like here in Miami, I can tell you just by visibly looking around, not everybody who had a job pre-pandemic has one now. So we definitely have to look to lawmakers for policies that are going to help not only women, but working mothers, such that we can see these numbers improve in the near future.
Now, Sinedu, you work in the human resources department. You see the data probably and privy to information that a lot of us aren't privy to. What are you seeing from your vantage point, especially as you work in the area in the space of diversity? I mean, are Black women is it the problem just that these jobs aren't available, or are Black women just choosing not to, apply and say, you know what, I'm going to either stay at home, I'm going to focus on school, or I'm going to be, focus on my entrepreneurial desires?
Thank you so much, Farajii, for having me on, especially with my sister. I think it's a really dangerous thing that happens in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what it is that sometimes we focus on equity and forget inclusion. So the equity, you need more Black people working in your establishment, or you need more, Hispanics or more LGBTQIA plus, and then you add that. But then within that, the women situation always becomes scratching of the chin. And I can't really put my finger on what I think it is, but as it pertains to Black women, if I'm to be honest, from my own opinion, I'm no statistician, but what I think it is a high level of intimidation, that folks feel intimidated by Black women and what they have to offer, and more or less white women feeling threatened by Black women, because funny enough, it has been my experience that you see a lot of white men actually comfortable with Black women in the space and actually want to lean on Black women for expertise. But it's a lot of white women who seem to feel threatened by a Black woman's intellect, her passion, her ability to navigate rooms. And if this sounds familiar, it almost has a slavery context. And I hate to always go there, but you gotta know the past, know the future. And with Black women being some of the most highly educated and highly degreed beings in our country, it is from a statistical point of view, it's almost surprising that that number is what it is, and the number for men are going down. But at the same time, it is understandable because of when you think about HR. HR is not just a system that's usually ran with whiteness; it's usually a lot of white women. So I think that's something taken into account.
So they do. You took it to a whole different space, bro.
We got to roll up the sleeves now.
About that. I really did not think about it. So they do and you're welcome.
Let's get to the point.
But no, I did not think about the cultural side of that, Suzette. I've heard Black women talk about other Black women in power, in positions of power, and how there could be, some generational tension between you got a younger Black woman coming to the space and an older Black woman feeling threatened. But to see that there might be I mean, we already know there could be a racial tension, but to see it coming from a white woman to a black woman, as far as, look, I'm not even going to go as far as to hire you, let alone trying to, accommodate or, trying to accommodate your skill set. It's like, no, we're not even going to hire you. Is that? I mean, that's
a lot there, Farajii. My mind went a little bit to some other places, but yes, racial bias and gender bias, of course, from your own. And again, I don't want to dismantle the sisterhood in this whole conversation, because there are white allies, and then there are other people that are unfortunately uncomfortable with the prospect of a diverse workforce, right? So we can't clump everyone together, but I know that especially, for example, even in the legal practice, it's a very conservative industry. As much as we see, a lot more Black lawyers playing on TV, et cetera, when you get into these law firms, 5% of attorneys nationwide are Black. 2% are women, 3% are men. And
wait a minute, hold on. I want you to say that one more time, Suzette. What's the number for that?
5% total. Like, I guess I'm biased because in Miami, I know a lot of Black attorneys, but I don't know what percentage of the whole is living in South Florida, but only 5% nationwide. So when we talk about opportunities, I think there are several things that come to mind. Mentorship, yes, is a big factor, because most people get a job from someone who they know, someone vouching for them or opening the door. A lot of times we see advertisements, but oftentimes those jobs are already given to someone who comes recommended, right? So the mentorship gap, I also think oftentimes Black women, particularly depending on the age of 30 to 50, oftentimes are caregivers, not only to possibly children, but also to older adults in the family. And so those roles sometimes can complicate your working condition. And oftentimes you are working much harder and trying to balance much more on your plate when you are given an opportunity. I do think probably shortage of the types of jobs, work stoppage, of course, length of time that you've been out of a job sometimes can make it very difficult. The pandemic has many people with large gaps on their resume, notwithstanding. I just think that the type of job that you have, the mentorship gap, the caregiver dilemma, the lack of support and public policy when it comes to working mothers who give 110% when they're working for you, nothing more committed than a Black woman when it comes to an organization that she believes in and that she knows values her. So working environments, there are a lot of contributors, I think, to this number, but we can go even deeper.
That is mind blowing. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I'm going to continue to stay on this train of thought, folks, and I want you to join me in the conversation. Post your comments in the chat, and we'll get right to them. And let's continue to talk about this latest set of numbers that show that Black women unemployment rate is rising. What's your take? Join us in the conversation and stay tuned. We got a lot to cover. We're just getting started here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, welcome back. We've been talking about the latest set of numbers around Black women. The Black women unemployment rate in this country has shown that there has been an uptick in Black women being unemployed in various industries, from everything from education to government to healthcare and to hospitality. A lot of industries have been hit, of course, by COVID and are still in the recovery mode. But the group that has been hit the hardest seems to be Black women. And it's not surprising, because we often find ourselves, unfortunately, at the bottom of the ladder when it comes to this level of recovery. But Black women have been affected the most so far, even more so than Black men, according to the latest data coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, I've been joined by my culture crew member, Suzette Speaks, TV host and attorney, also joined by Sinedu Okorafor, who is a specialist in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Sinedu put it out there, it's not necessarily that Black women don't have what it takes. It's not necessarily that Black women don't want to take advantage of the opportunities. It's that there's still that level of systemic racism and cultural bias that white women in HR departments across this country have against Black women. Very different part of the conversation. Very different part of the conversation. I want to share something from one of our loyal watchers and online culture crew, Damon Blissett, my brother Damon. He posted something that I thought is very, very important. He said, Farajii, just think, we just went through a whole election cycle stating that Black women are the most educated sector in our society. So yes, they are intimidated.
Well,
so, and yes, let the church say amen. Pastor David, what's that? But here's the thing, though. How do you deal with that? Because, you know, getting a job is one thing. Trying to break down somebody's cultural bias and they do is a whole different Herculean task. So how do we get through that?
And I think this is kind of speaking a little bit on what Suzette was talking about earlier. I think the best way to get on it is to, first of all, I want all the listeners to know that not one of the reasons that me or my colleague or Farajii shared is the reason. It's a culmination of all of those.
Right.
One, in my opinion, one great way to get rid of this is also if Black women who are in human resources or who are in good positions could also lend a hand to their sisters. But I'll tell you why that doesn't happen is because of a concept that I like to call the marginalized margins. When you're already a marginalized group and you're already small, first Black this to do this, first Black this, it becomes a little bit difficult to want somebody else coming in your space because you may think that person is taking your shine or this or that. And I have seen it time without numbers, even when I worked in places that were heavily Black. You see that same thing with Black women, as if every group can only have one great Black woman, one great Black man. You can go to companies, and with all due respect, you can see 50 white women that are, with all due respect, 50 white women who are literally the exact same person. They're doing the exact same things in different departments. They're the same person in different departments. But when it comes to being an African-American woman, it seems like you have to be, the expert and the best. And on top of that, it's a threat possibly if another Black woman comes in. And I think if it could be an opportunity for Black women rather than a threat, that power could be used to push and drive more changes in the human resources system.
Suzette, how is that something that you face?
Listen, this is such a sensitive conversation because it's real. It's actually very real. This crabs in a barrel mentality is real. And I know right now, girlfriends who are dealing with mentors or people who were once mentors and friends at their job, now making it very difficult for them. So there is this mentality, unfortunately, that Sinedu has recognized so eloquently, that sometimes we are suffering from kind of this internalized idea of, there can only be one, there can only be so many, not get a bigger piece of the pie for all of us. There's one little slice they're giving out and I want it. So we can sometimes inadvertently, close the door behind us instead of opening the door behind us. And that has to be dealt with. That has to be talked about openly. It is I want to say commonplace, but I can tell you over the last few years, I know several women who have this challenge of dealing with someone who they thought was going to be an ally and a mentor, who is, the same skin color as them, who has made it very difficult for them, or has had some kind of, dislike, disdain for whatever reason, and has changed it up, switched it up on them. So yeah, we have some of that going on. But I do think we also have to focus on, the providing of opportunity is the gateway to increases in terms of employment and income. Not getting in the door is, I think, some of the source of why we see this number. Then once we get there, we need an environment where we can thrive and not, a dog eat dog. Of course, America is competitive. Capitalism makes you competitive, but we can all win, and we need to kind of shift that mentality.
I think that is something that we should all like keep our eyes on, right? Because and as a man, Sinead, you pointed it out, but we can't insert ourselves in a situation like that. It's got to be women checking other women in that situation, right? Like I can, we could talk about it from the outside, but there are some things that Black women need to handle within Black women's circles. And so I'm very clear about that. Go ahead,
yeah, absolutely. And I think outside, inside, whatever, we can advocate all we want, but it's for them to decide how they, because what I believe that if this is happening in the workplace, then it also happened in the classroom. And it probably before that happened at the playground and so on and so forth. It has to be digested as something internal and learned that needs to be divested from, if you will, within Black women. And it's definitely not a Black man's place to get involved, but it is definitely his place to support.
Absolutely. Now, Johnson's brought up a point. Johnson checked in and said, my take, Black women got better opportunities, better things to do than to deal with American racism, colorism, Black women more qualified, but more obstacles. So is that a part of the conversation? Is it the fact that now Black women, and I'm not saying this is that like you're the
I can't speak for everybody.
All Black women, right? But the thing is about, have Black women said, I'm tired of this system, therefore I'm moving out. I think it was Tiana that made the point, and I want to make sure I got her. Tiana said a lot of Black women are starting their own companies. That Black women are saying, you know what? I can't deal with this racism. I can't deal with all this stuff. I'm moving out. Whereas Black men, we might be like, hey, I'm just showing up.
Right.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like Black women, y'all are just simply tired of the BS. Can we consider that?
No, great point, Farajii. When it comes to the Great Resignation, we also, gained a new awareness of other possibilities that are out there. The side hustles were real. People were in these streets doing what we've always done, which is survived, right? We found a way. We found a way to double our income outside of the normal corporate structure, or even just maintain our income when we can. And I think most of the culture around working in Black women is that you always have a little something for yourself going on, whether you doing hair, I don't know what you're selling in terms of your products or whatever, your lashes. I don't know what you're doing, but we have been very, creative and resourceful as always, just to, maintain our standard of living or even grow our wealth in some unique way. So I do think there are studies that do show that we are the number one entrepreneurs in terms of starting new businesses in the United States. And there is this kind of desire, I think, not to take any old job, is to take a job that I know there are studies that have also shown that Black people tend to want to work remotely. So they can avoid some of the office politics and sometimes bias and those other things that come. I know I enjoy that. When I don't have to go to the office, I'm like, bye. I don't want to see anybody because it allows you a better quality of life, and your mindset is not, as challenged. We are always going to have stress as Black women dealing with all the multiple layers and lenses through which we are assessed and viewed and sometimes criticized, etc., from hair to performance. So
Right.
yeah, there are a multitude of factors that we're kind of getting into here that I think contributed. But yes, the entrepreneurial spirit is definitely one of them.
All right, we got about 30 seconds, but I do want to get your take on this, y'all, very quickly about the entrepreneurial spirit. How do we keep that in a proper context? Because I know everybody talked about that being during a pandemic, like start a job, start a business, like it just happens overnight. I'm wondering, yes, there could be a high number of Black women that start new businesses, but how many sustain those businesses over the past, over the 6 months, years time? I think that's a different part of the conversation. So how do we keep that conversation in its proper context? That, yeah, you could be an entrepreneur, but just know it's going to require time and a lot of work and some sleepless nights and the whole nine.
I'll say this. I think Black women, in my opinion, are better at than the Black men. It has been like that since we got here. When that question was asked before, I thought about the scene in Roots where the men wanted to take over the boat, and it was the women who understood what needed to be done to do that. That is kind of where Black women who have worked in corporate America, there's many people who are working in corporate America who have decided to leave because the idea wasn't just to work to get successful. The idea was to work to learn the game and now play the game on themselves, or with by themselves, if you will. And it is just my opinion. Like I said, I'm not saying it's fact. I think a lot of Black women have been doing just that. And I don't look at it as, in 6 months or 12 months or whatever. I think, in my opinion, Black women always play the long game. So you may see, you may not hear about it until it's a big business, but it was a little business for two years.
Gotcha. Great point. Look, we got to take another pause. When we come forward, folks, let's shift the conversation. I want to talk about a Black woman that is making history, how the descendant of a lynching victim in Michigan has now risen to become a justice in the Supreme Court for the state of Michigan. This is a fascinating story, and it speaks a lot about resilience in America. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, let's now talk about another history-making Black woman. We're talking about the sister Kyra Harris Bolden. Now, Kyra has made history as the first Black woman and the youngest sworn in to serve on the Michigan Supreme Court. Take a look, folks. This is very interesting. Fascinating story. That's Kyra right there. Look at this young sister. And I know Suzette can appreciate this. But here's the backstory behind Kyra's rise. Her grandfather, a gentleman by the name of Jesse Lee Bond, was lynched back in 1939 in broad daylight in Arlington, Tennessee. Take a look. Harrison Bell Bolden, she made history as the first Black woman, the youngest sworn in to serve on the Michigan Supreme Court. The brutal injustice that her grandfather suffered became the impetus for her political aspirations. She said, "I like to say that I will be a justice for generations just because of my family history of injustice." Now, in 1939, Jesse Lee Bond was lynched in broad daylight in Arlington, Tennessee, when he was just 20 years old. According to reports, the white owner of the Cy Wilson feed store was angered that Bond asked for a receipt for the supplies he purchased. In response, several white men shot Bond, then took him, dragged him, castrated him, and stuck him out in the Hatchie River. His nephew, Ronald Morris, told ABC, the two men who were tried for Bond's murder were eventually acquitted by an all-white jury. I want to bring in my culture crew members, Suzette Speaks and Sinead Wakofor. This is hard. When you hear about this story, it's a hard story. And it reminds me of what we've heard about the story of Emmett Till and so many other Black people. And I know that if that river could talk, because that seems like if that river could talk, Brother Sinead, what a song and a story it would tell. But the fact that 84 years after that horrific incident, his granddaughter winds up being chosen and elected to the Supreme Court for the state of Michigan, a young sister. And she is moving forward and being a not just a woman who talks about justice, but she is justice. In a sense. Now, I want to share with you, with folks, how she reflected on this, and then Suzette and Sinead, I'd love to get your take on this. She said when she reflected on her journey, she noted that her family went from lynching to law school, from injustice to justice. But her achievement is not enough to address the long history of racial violence and inequality in America. She said we still have worked hard to try to break down these barriers, noting that there has yet to be a Black woman governor in the United States. All right, let's talk about this. Here's why I wanted to talk about this, Sinead and Suzette, is because I think that when we have these conversations, and we're slowly coming up on Black History Month, of course, Dr. King Day is around the corner. But when you can't tell me that there isn't something special about our people, where you can become, where you are at one time within a 100-year period, which is not a very long time when you think about it. You can become you can be lynched and then wind up being on Supreme Court justice. You can be lynched or wind up being in a Congress. You could be lynched and wind up being president. There is something special about Black people in America. And I think that when we have this year's celebration of Black History Month, and even as we celebrate Dr. King, I think these are the moments that we need to reflect on, because the resilience of a people. I mean, look, I don't know how I would respond if the very court system that allowed these white men who murdered my grandfather to walk, I want to get involved in.
Yeah.
That's the part. That's the part, Suzette. I don't know if I would have the strength to even say, you know what, I'm going to run and do that. Like you, and this is part of that conversation. You know how we hear a lot of Black folks that say, if you want to change the system, sometimes you got to get into the system and change it from the inside. This sister did exactly that. She became it. But it has to be a very hard pill. Like, we're proud, but then at the same time, but you're working for the very system that allowed your grandfather's killers to walk. And this is a powerful, very fascinating story. What's your take on this, Suzette?
Well, there's so many aspects of this story that I found so moving. And yes, I agree with you that it shows the resilience of the African American in the United States, but I also want to make sure we cover this as an American story. There has been an effort to separate out Black history as if it's not American history, as we've seen in the attempts to not teach it. But we have to make sure it's embraced as a part of the American narrative, one of the darker times of our country's history that we can acknowledge while still celebrating the triumph of going from lynching to law school. When I dug a little bit deeper into this lynching, and again, we know, probably those watching here, our viewers know about this period of terrorism in American history, where under the auspices of American law, American jurisprudence, police state, all of the mechanisms of the government were allowing for the terrorism of Black bodies on American soil. And as I looked into the story of Jesse Lee Bolden, he is one of 35 that we know of lynchings that took place in Shelby County, Tennessee. As I watched, it's on YouTube, and I encourage our viewers to go and watch the memorial service that was held about 2018, where his brothers, people who loved him, who are still alive, nephews, cousins, were there to finally recognize the atrocity. He was just simply asking for a receipt for purchase, but we know at that time in America, a sharecropper could not question a white person. And ultimately, it cost him his life. He went back into the store to ask for one and was shot at, brought into the town square, as you just read, dragged behind vehicle, castrated, and life just robbed from him.
All because he just asked for a receipt.
It is the most, when I think
and
about
we say that lightly nowadays, right?
Yeah,
like pull the receipt, where's the receipt? But this is a story that the man simply just asked for a verification that he bought some goods. And as a simple request, all of that torture was done to that man.
Yeah, it is a very eye-opening part of our history, because again, there are people who want to deny or refuse to teach this part of American history, but we have to, even though it's so painful, make it a priority that we push stories like this. And thankfully, her election has allowed us to revisit this in a way, looking at it as a triumph, but also really rediscovering that terrorism, that pain, that injustice that was a normal part of life for over 100 years in terms of post-Jim Crow, post-Civil War through Jim Crow in our history.
Sinead, and it's interesting as we have this conversation about the resilience. We just had a conversation about Black women not being employed, but Black women have great resilience, great vision to still want to break barriers, glass ceilings, to break through the walls and penetrate through all of the hate and the shame of racism. And to see this sister make that type of stride, to make this type of progress, brother, I'm blown away. I'm blown away. When I first saw the story, I was like, I got to talk about this. This is mind blowing, and it's almost, I want to even go as far to say it's like God protected her and her family to allow this to happen. Like we mourn the loss of her grandfather, but then God said, "Y'all want to know what real justice look like? Here she come."
Yeah, Farajii, it's a very interesting thing. It's a great story. I'm always, in the middle of it, in the middle of feeling good, but like, why did this have to be the historical significance to it? But that's what it is. I mean, Black women have always been breaking, Black people, but in this instance, Black women have always been breaking through glass ceilings. But I just want to make it clear that in the world we live in, naturally, there are no ceilings. So we have to be reminded that those ceilings that we're breaking through were actually put there to hold us down. And I think as we congratulate people for breaking through it, we must also ask, why was it there in the first place? I'm very happy of what she has been able to now achieve. And I am just hoping that with this position, that, because we know the power of white supremacy, and I don't want to rain on the parade, but I just hope that she is strong and I hate using these words, but there's a bigger enemy that she's going up against. Let's look at State's Attorney, former State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, who went in there and did amazing work in Baltimore City, and the moment she overly shook white structures, all of a sudden she was now scandaled and this and that and this and that. So I hate to say it, but this is my experience as a Black man in these Americas, is that whenever these situations happen where Black folks, women in particular, are breaking glass ceilings, I'm praying that the architects of those first ceilings aren't trying to create another one right above the threshold that was broken.
Absolutely. Look, we're going to take another quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue to talk about this. And Culture Crew, I want to hear directly from you. Make sure you post your comments in the chat. And let's continue to talk about the history of this story, the resilience behind this story, and so much more. So stay with us. The discussion will continue right here on The Culture, here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, thank you so much for tuning back in. We've been talking about the great story of Kyra Harris Bolden. This is the young Black woman who has made history in the state of Michigan as being the first Black woman that's been appointed to the Supreme Court in the state of Michigan. The other part about Kyra's story is that she's actually the descendant of a lynching victim. Her grandfather, Jesse Lee Bond, was lynched 84 years ago in 1939 in the most torturous way. And as a result of that, that has fueled her political aspirations to move forward to run for the highest bench in the state of Michigan. We've been talking to Suzette Speaks and Sinedu Okorafor about this story. Here's what I was thinking during the break, Suzette and Sinedu. Is this the story that we want to, and I'm not saying just this story in particular, but this path? Because is this the direction that we want to take our liberation, where we can go from a place of great pain, great torture, chattel slavery, Jim Crow, all of those things, to ascend to the highest ranks in the land? And is this sufficient? Now, trust and believe, I'm not throwing shade on the sister's accomplishment. I think it's a fantastic thing. But I'm just wondering, looking at the bigger picture, is this the sufficient amount of justice, quote unquote, that we should have or we should be seeking when it comes to our history here in this country? Because I know a lot of people say, well, once you get to a certain level, that's justice. But this, I'm gonna be honest. I'm proud of Sister Kyra, but I don't know if this is justice.
Well, there's.
Oh no! Now I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying. And I hope y'all don't misunderstand. I'm just wondering, because I feel like, damn, you should now, Kyra, you should use your political, your bully pulpit to try to go after the family members or something. Get an apology. I mean, get something from it. You know what I mean?
Well, I look at it. I think there is a lot of good points that you're making there, Farajii. When I think about this, when you initially brought up that resilience piece, there are people who don't believe that participating in a system that was initially designed oppress you is in fact justice. But I probably would argue that, this system is going to remain intact. How do we circumvent it? And if we cannot, we must try to, conquer from within, if you will, in terms of allowing ourselves, to, what should I say, find ways within that system to exact, I wouldn't even call it retribution at all. I would say more so like justice. So I look at this as, this system couldn't even fathom and was not designed to include women, much less a Black woman at its highest, offices. It wasn't designed for that. And for us to find a way, in spite of, tragedy, as we're just, discussing here now, we still, made it, so to speak. So I don't know if it's enough. I understand your point. I think I understand your point, so to speak. But I do think, again, it is a testament to the African-American spirit and will to still try to see, ourselves as full inheritors of the American experiment instead of being, the marginalized inheritors of it. I don't hope that makes sense.
And no, that makes a lot of sense. And Suzette, and this is what I'm about to say. I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but we already know that. You know what I'm saying? There have been many stories.
They know that.
Let me tell you, if they don't know that in 2023, right? We produce presidents, congresspeople, we produce businessmen, women. I mean, they already know that. Like, if you see, and really, if we look at where we are in this country, it is a testament to all that you just mentioned of the resilience. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are doctors and lawyers, we are professors and scholars. I mean, we are top athletes and entertainers. I mean, we really are at the top of the game. Right. So they already know that. And if we're going to have to, part of me is like, do we have to keep proving to them like, hey, we're human. Hey, we're resilient. Hey, because at some point, when do we say, you know what? I'm tired of trying to appease to you. At this point, I'm just trying to get retribution because of the past wrongs that you have caused my father, grandfather, grandmother, all of the pain that you've caused my ancestors. And that's the part about it, Sinead. It's like, you and I, all three of us, we're great in our own right. But at the end of the day, the greatness is not just on an individual level. It has to be collective. And the greatness has to be where our greatness puts an end to some of the pain that has been imposed on our people. Am I wrong in thinking of Sinead?
No, you're not wrong. And it's a bittersweet thought, not to be funny. I always say this: justice is just ice. Like, it's cold. You feel good when you move forward, but like, I feel good for what this young lady has done. But when I think about what her ancestor went through, it's a cold feeling of goodness. But I think what matters the most is we don't choose our journey of liberation. We just do what it takes to liberate ourselves. And I think for as long as we're focusing, because at this juncture in my life, I would hope more Black folks are less focused on proving anything to whiteness. Because we have to remember, pre-slavery, we were everything and more.
Right.
During slavery, we were everything and more, but subjugated to inhuman systems. After slavery, we were everything and more. And in present day, we're everything and more. And I think what happens is we get lost in the cacophony of trying to prove to whiteness that we are great, when in all actuality, it's us reminding ourselves that you come from greatness, you've been great, and you'll continue to be great.
Absolutely. All right, let me get to a couple of my culture crew members. Janelle, you checked in and said her success was achieved in spite of the trauma that mob inflicted upon her ancestor, and it is completely hers. Justice for the crime is needed outside of her rise. Suzette, from a legal standpoint, can she take any type of steps to? I mean, I know some people might say, "Oh, that's petty." Please,
no, it's not petty at all. There's no statute of limitations on murder. The only thing is, on this case, they were already tried. And so there is that double jeopardy rule, which says you cannot be tried for the same crime in a court of law twice. So unfortunately, at that time, with the jury being, all white jury that was biased with, again, putting historical context on this type of case, which was the norm back then. They were not allowed, Black people weren't even allowed to testify, much less sit on a jury. You're going to have difficulty because they were acquitted, essentially, the shop owner and his friend who did this. Back to your previous point, I just want to add, I know we are great. My point was saying that instead of just proving it, I don't really think we are full inheritors of all of the spoils, if you will. So yes, I think there is a broader understanding across the board among various sectors in America of the talent, the capability, the competence, the creativity of Blackness. But I don't think we are full inheritors of all of the spoils of the country, is what I'm saying. And how do we become that? We don't necessarily have the means to totally, disrupt the entire system. So sometimes we have to work within the system to regain what is ours, which is the access to the halls of power, the education, the income, the jobs that we just talked about, all those things that we're still kind of suffering from, although we do have this greatness inside of us.
The only issue, and I see it, and I think I know both of you know this, is that when we get to a point of greatness, the finish line gets moved up.
Yeah, that's true too.
You know what I'm saying? We break through the glass ceiling, and then all of a sudden it's like the glass maker comes back and be like, wait a minute, hold on, you didn't break through this ceiling though. And it's
just kidding, you don't qualify for that.
Damn, bro, like we just went through 40 years of glass ceiling breaking. Like, damn, like you see what I'm saying? And so after a certain point, it's like, you know what? Bump the glass. I'm gonna just build a wall.
I hear you.
Like, I'm not going through these ceilings no more, man. I'm gonna just have a convertible top or some shit. You know what I mean? It's just like we're not doing this. Like, it just gets to that point because it's crazy. And that's why I asked about the legal course of action that the sister can take. Because I would like for her, I mean, maybe it's not her, at least her family, her current family, to say, you know what? Look, we need to do something. Let's bring up
vacate this judgment. I would have to look deeper into the laws of Tennessee, etc. But I'm like, I wonder if they can vacate it. I do not know if she even has that desire. But I think just her being there brings a light to this side and this time in American history, where again, there's so many efforts to delete it, to have this erasure of this really painful and true time in our history, so that we can air it out, recognize it, acknowledge it, so it doesn't happen again.
Sinead, as we wrap up this part of the discussion, when we're talking about moving forward in Black history, right? Because this is what I kept thinking when I was kind of reviewing this story. We have to celebrate Black history differently at some point. And I'm talking, I know about the heroes and sheroes. We could talk about Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman and all of the great ones. But now we have powerful stories that have happened within the last 50 years, last 100 years, that we have yet to uncover. Lessons that we have yet to tap into, people that we have yet to really know. And I'm wondering, can this Black History Month this year be something different in our expression?
Great question. Absolutely. And since I was a even younger man, I have a proponent for the idea of history doesn't need to be ages ago to be relevant. There are Black folk every single day doing something at a local, state, and national level. And I think it's very important. It's very important for the movement of Black history, which is American history, to be continuous. We must honor everybody who is doing something amazing. This way, you don't think that the Martin Luther King, the Sojourner Truth, that they're the only definitions of success and doing great things. There's somebody in your city. And sometimes the idea of access can change perception on what you see. So I think it's important that we celebrate Black history from within and around us, as well as on a local, state, and national level.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this right here is history making. And of course, I hope that people, during over these next few weeks, we go back to this story of Kyra Harris Bolden and her grandfather, Jesse Lee Bond, to tell it during Black History Month. Look, folks, I'm telling to my culture crew, look, share the story. Let people know that we are great. And, you know, at the great HBCU, Morgan State University, Sinead, you understand what we say. There is a saying that we use all the time. Tell them we are rising. Tell them we are rising.
Absolutely.
And don't be afraid to tell them we are rising. And so I think that, you know, especially given the state of affairs in this country in 2023, Black folks, we can't afford not to know something about these stories or about these people or about these historical moments. And more importantly, we can't afford not to know something about why we are doing what we are doing. Because at this point, it just feels like I don't want us to get into a place, Suzette and Sinead, where we just talking. Like, we got to show the world that we are rising indeed. Sinead, my brother, I know you checking out, but I truly, truly appreciate your brilliance this afternoon. So thank you so much for checking in. Suzette, we got more conversation to have with you. Folks, stay with us as we come forward. Let's talk about the Golden Globes. It was a big night for Black artists and entertainers, but not so much for the Black host. I got some words for Gerard Carmichael, the host of last night's 80th Golden Globe Awards, and I just want to share them with you, and you let me know if I'm off base or not. So stay tuned for that conversation. And also later on, we're going to talk about Mariah Carey's attempt to try to get full custody of her twins, and as her former ex-husband, Nick Cannon, continues to produce babies, and why this might actually lead to the conversation about who defines fatherhood, the mother or the court. Stay with us. Those discussions are up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, last night was another major and historic night in Hollywood, as yesterday was the 80th annual Golden Globe Awards. And this is really the kickoff of the award season for some of Hollywood's boldest and brightest and biggest stars. And last night, it was something to behold. Now, we told you yesterday that the Golden Globes decided to take a more diverse approach in presenting this year's awards. Because they were under a lot of fire. The Hollywood Foreign Press Agency, this is the group behind the Golden Globe Awards, they have been under fire for the past couple of years because of the lack of diversity, whether it's from their internal leadership, or into the awards, or as it relates to representation. And so yesterday's show was hosted by a Black person, was executive produced by a Black person, and as we saw, the big winners from last night was really a highlight of Black artistry and Black excellence. And I want to bring in Suzette Speaks as we talk about this night, last night, Golden Globes. All right, first and foremost, let me just I gotta deal with this situation, because I want to get past this, because there were some great moments in last night's Golden Globes. One of my favorite actresses, Auntie. I'm calling her Auntie Angela. I don't care what nobody said. Angela Bassett is aunt status at this point in my life. I love some Angela Bassett.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I love some Angela Bassett, y'all. Look at this. That's Aunt Angela right there, y'all.
Looking like a statue. Let's go.
Let me tell you something. Aunt Angela is killing on the small screen and the big screen. I am a huge fan of her show 911 on Fox. Huge fan. I love the show. She's an executive producer of the show. Her and Uncle Courtney Vance, they have a phenomenal film production company, the Bassett Vance Productions. Love what they're doing to try to change the conversation around a lot of topics around women and history. And of course, she's still killing it on the big screen. Now, not a lot of actresses and actors can make the transition the way she's made it. Yeah. But y'all see her on the small screen. I saw her in American Horror Story too. Have you ever seen that? You ever watched that?
She's great. Ooh.
She was great in that. But then, you know, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Everybody should have seen it. Everybody should have seen it by now.
Let's go.
Look, Winston Duke, who plays what's the character that he plays? M'Baku, right. He said
I love you,
he said this jokingly when he was on Good Morning America. He said he got tired of the standing ovations that the crew were giving Angela Bassett when she had that great scene. Have I not lost everything?
Y'all know that. I love some Angela Bassett. My gosh.
Let me tell you, because they kept, they had to kind of, keep filming it a couple of times. And he said every time they filmed it and she brought it, they gave her the whole crew had to stop their job and just gave her a standing ovation. He said he got tired of the standing ovation. I said, oh man. But he said, of course, obviously she's great. So she won last night. The sister Quinta Bronson, who created the show Abbott Elementary, they're still on their awards run. They won last night. The young brother Tyler James, played for Best Supporting Actor. Aunt Angela, she got hers for Best Supporting Actor. There we go. That's Quinta in the purple and black. She's the creator. She's having a big year. Tyler James, from Everybody Hates Chris to now Abbott Elementary, Best Supporting Actor. Zendaya won for her award for the phenomenal show on HBO. I love that show. The show is so good, it's too real to watch.
I know, right?
When she plays a young drug addict.
Yep. Shout out to Zendaya.
Euphoria.
Mm-hmm. Euphoria.
So the Euphoria, phenomenal cast. The whole cast is phenomenal. And then Eddie Murphy got the Cecil B. DeMille Award, Lifetime Achievement Award, for his 46 years of being. He said he's been doing movies for 41 years.
It's crazy. And well deserved, even though he was cutting up during the speech. It was really good.
Right.
Eddie Murphy, well deserved.
So we saw some of these big moments, but here's the problem I had.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was overshadowed by Gerard Carmichael, the host.
Some people might want their money back. I don't know. I love him as a person. It was intense. And again, I watched some of it. I had my own YouTube show on at the same time, mind you, doing a show myself. So I watched a lot of clips. And of course, I went to Twitter and wanted to see what people had to say. He's a comedian. And he's like a satirical comedian. So he makes you feel like really uncomfortable bringing up some truth. And I do think he had a difficult job. And I mean it facetiously when I say they want their money back, but he was over like stepping over some boundaries and crossing some lines, as comedians do when it comes to discussing the problem that the Hollywood foreign press had initially, which was up until George Floyd, they hadn't had a black member for 20 years. And this was a real issue in terms of their lack of diversity, so much so that, NBC said, no, we're not carrying it. So this was a return of the show. It was not aired live. I also want to shout out MJ Rodriguez, who also won when the show was not being broadcast. The Best Dramatic Actress, Best Actress in a Drama for Pose. Yep. She won last year, first transgender woman to win that. But yeah, he definitely pushed the envelope. And it was uncomfortable. And he kind of put it out there, right, at the beginning that, why am I hosting this? Because I'm Black. And I have to speak on behalf of an embattled, predominantly white organization that has had, issues with diversity and other issues with their leadership. So I think he had a tough job. I will say again, his style of comedy might be a little bit too much for this setting. I mean, it's a party. It's supposed to be Hollywood's fun and kind of flamboyant and exciting kind of house party kind of vibe. And
Right.
so there was a lot of joy in the room, as you spoke about, with all these wonderful, beautiful, melanated winners. But yeah, a lot of people are still talking about him and clipping up a lot of his comedy, which again was very edgy and left you kind of feeling uncomfortable in your chair. Like, okay, did you have to say that? Did you have to go there?
Look. I'm gonna use a term because I'm not joking about this. I think it was a lot of cooning.
You think so?
Yeah. A lot of coonery.
Oh wow. Okay. I didn't watch it fully for context.
It's like an 8-minute monologue. Of course, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Here's why. As a host, and you and I both, Suzette, we hosted events, right? So we get it. When somebody approaches you to do an event, to host an event, you do your analysis, I do my analysis, and say, okay, is this an organization that I want to kind of help promote, advocate for, stand up in front of and host for? So if the organization or the company that requests your hosting services doesn't fall in line with your values, would you host the event?
No, not me personally, but they've made some changes. They've tried to change a few things.
This is why. So we wouldn't host an event. If I don't believe in what you're doing, why would I host your event? If I don't agree with what you're doing, why would I host the event, right? I'm not going to take the money only to blaze you, to roast you at the event that you asked me to be a professional for. See, that's the part about it. I mean, he went through this whole diatribe about, a friend of his who is executive producer of the Golden Globes called him and said it would be an honor for you to host this event. And he said he was in conflict. He was in conflict because he knew about the history of the Hollywood Foreign Press Agency. But then when they told him about the $500,000 he would get to host the event, his homegirl Avery said, boy, you better go host an event. Now, here's the thing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Bro, you can't profess a principled stance with your mouth and then your action shows weakness. I don't care how much they offer you. If you say that they don't fall in line with your values, why even pimp yourself? Why be a prostitute for $1?
Well,
that's what I'm saying. Like if Trump said, "Hey, I'll give you $1 million to send out a tweet saying that you support me." Now we can all say, "Oh no, Trump! I couldn't do that for Trump." Trump said, "I'll give you $1 million to say that you're going to support me, and that you should tell your black friends to support me." Would you send a tweet? Now this is just a tweet. This ain't asking you to be on the campaign trail. Would you send a tweet? Some of us would.
So I'm about to say a lot of people gonna say yes.
I know a lot of people would, but I'm saying at this point,
yeah,
we can't look. If we're going to, this is what makes the difference between the heroes and sheroes of our past versus us now. People say, well, what about, when we always talk about Martin and Malcolm and everything, but the reason that make them great is because these were principled men and women.
Absolutely.
Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, Dr. King, they never did something that they didn't believe in.
Mm-hmm.
When Dr. King opposed the Vietnam War, when he started his campaign to oppose the Vietnam War 1 year before he was assassinated, there was even talk of taking away his Nobel Peace Prize as a result of his opposition to the war. Did that stop him? No, it did not. Because that's the principle. I'm tired of black folks always acting like you doing something revolutionary or you doing something pro-black. But then when the dollar sign comes into the conversation, you take the dollar, you weaken your stance, and then you go on TV and you try to blast the very people that's feeding you. Either you shut up and take the money, right? He said that he neglected the meeting with the Hollywood Foreign Press's president to talk about diversity. You do all this stuff, and all they did was just raise the value to buy you off. Your ass still showed up. You talk bad about them, and most likely you won't probably get no type of hosting gigs because that's all over the world, right? You probably won't get no gig. You did yourself a disservice, and you know who else you did a disservice to? To those black artists who work. Aunt Angela hadn't gotten a Golden Globe in like 30 years.
Yeah, since What's Love got to do with it? Absolutely, yeah.
So you take away from the brilliance, the excellence of the artistry, and the excellence with your coonery claim, and then you talking about, well, I took the $500,000. Like the people, the community ain't getting that. That's for your self-interest, bro. That's not for us. That's not for the culture. That's for you. So you can't be like, yeah, I'm pro-black. Yeah, man, I took their money. I took that white folks' money. And then, bro, that's not, no, principle should be principle all the way through. If you're going to ride with them, you might as well just ride with them. There is no gain in you talking big black stuff only for you to take their money, be bought off, then go into their platform, into their space, talk bad about them. Look, and you know, if you look at the moments, he said so much uncomfortable stuff, so much edgy stuff, as you said, Suzette. He said, we're in the same, it was at the Beverly Hills Hilton Hotel. He said, we're in the same hotel that killed Whitney Houston.
That was cringy. I was like, oh, I could just hear the gasps.
Bro,
not
see
funny,
what I'm saying?
not
Like,
funny,
if you putting out comedy like this, that means you're really not thinking about black culture, black artistry. How you gonna say that Whitney Houston is our icon, bro? So we got a whole movie about the sister. We still miss our sister Whitney. And you gonna make a joke about that? Nah, bro, you're a coon for that. That's a bunch of coonery. That's a bunch of coonery. You can't be like, man, that's pro-black. Man, I would have done it. My ass wouldn't have done it. Unless I had a conversation with the president, unless I know for sure, look, y'all gonna make some changes, y'all gonna do something. But man, shut up with all that stuff, man, because you still bought and paid for.
I can understand your point of view. Yeah,
dude screwed over the culture with that one. He screwed over the culture with that one.
I lack the context of watching it like live or you know, from start to finish, and I kind of I'm listening and trying to kind of contextualize what he thought he might have been doing. I cannot speak for this gentleman. I'm just always trying to think where his point of view may come in. If he thinks he was doing something in protest by kind of being so direct with the call outs and being so in your face with the past issues of the Hollywood Foreign Press, I can kind of see him trying to justify. I took this,
coonery, man.
But I again trying to play devil's advocate and see where he might be in his thought process. I can't speak for him, but he'd have to explain why he thought perhaps maybe he was still making a statement. I don't know, but
and see what I'm saying? Like, you make black folks in the room feel all uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you got great black artists, not only Aunt Angela and brother Courtney Vance, but you had like Eddie Murphy. I mean, just look at the list of who was in the room, man. Yeah. These are artists, man. Look, I'm starting to see this in Black Hollywood. These Black Hollywood artists, the ones that we love and admire, they're starting to see more and more their significance and their power and influence in pushing black artistry and culture, right? If you talk to Aunt Angela, she understands that she is pushing it. If you talk to Viola Davis, who was in the room, they're trying to push it. Then you got this young black man making jokes like this. When these women in particular are trying to put out content to go against the grain, talking about representation, bro, you terrible for the culture. And
wrong place, wrong time
for black folks, because that is not black culture. There's a way you can get that point across without being so edgy, yet you're so edgy, you're disrespectful to black and white. How do you walk both lines, Suzette? How you edgy against black and white?
Yeah, like I said, I saw the best of moments, and the comedy was definitely, extreme in terms of, what he was trying to convey. And then again, people will say he's a comedian. He was paid, to make
Dave
jokes.
Chappelle wouldn't have done it like that.
I know, and again, it's his style. He has a very satirical, in your face style that can make you squirm, in terms of the truth behind some of it. However, I hear what you're saying in terms of wrong place, wrong time, in terms of what he was maybe trying to do, which was to kind of let them know, yeah, you paid me, but I'm still going to call you out, and I'm still going to reflect on from the stage, how you became, why I'm really here is because, you became interested in me because you needed a black person, and he was very in your face. So yeah, it's a different style of comedy, but I can hear what you're saying, and I validate, your point of view.
Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more conversation about Golden Globes recap. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20036-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Folks, we have been talking about Golden Globes as we give a recap of last night's festivities at the Beverly Hilton Hotel here in Los Angeles, as Black artists and Black excellence came out to accept powerful and very, very important awards for their artistry and a number of productions, both on a small screen of television to the big screen of film. We've been checking in with Suzette Speaks, TV host and attorney, talking about all of the big moments and that hosting fiasco.
The messiness of John Michael. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to go back and watch more. I really want to watch it now to see what it all, you know, I saw those clips that were very uncomfortable and some would call them even up to distasteful. So I can't wait to kind of review this myself.
We've been down this road before where people think that they can get into these spaces, right? And try to act as if they're doing something for the culture. But you wind up becoming so fiery and so disrespectful, you burn yourself up.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, to the people that were in the room. Now, we can say what we want to say about Hollywood. We know Hollywood is Hollywood, right? But you really do have great Black artists in Hollywood. We can't take away from
their moments,
their talent.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So why would you even set the tone where, you know, you want to talk about the Hollywood foreign press? Because to an Angela Bassett, she took her moment. If y'all look at her speech, she took her moment.
Go watch it, y'all. Yeah, watch it.
She talked about Chadwick. She talked about the moment of having a look. The thing that made her award historic was the fact that she was the first person to get an award from the Golden Globes for a Marvel film.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Like, because everybody knows MCU is huge. That universe is huge. Yeah. She's the first person to get an award for an action comic.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, and to look
that's
at
how
her,
powerful her role and that's how powerful her work is. Why would you? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, looking at her body of work, it's well deserved. She didn't get the Oscar. I'll just say it out loud for What Love's Got to Do with It. Probably deserved that one as well. So yeah, to kind of rob the beauty of, you know, the moment for so many that, you know, we're overdue now that the, you know, Hollywood foreign press has woken up to, oh yeah, there are Black people out here too who are super talented and deserve recognition and have been overlooked for too long. Some of that did get lost in kind of this huge kerfuffle, which is this gentleman kind of using his, you know, I guess, style in a way that may not have been as appropriate as it needed it to be, so that we were not talking about the real winners of the night, and the folks that deserve to be talked about. Shout out to Quinta Brunson. Shout out to Angela Bassett, Zendaya, Auntie Angela, my fave. Yeah, there Tyler James Williams, all these folks that shout out to Rihanna. I didn't mention her that she was nominated as well for her song for Black Panther and was in the house. And so many celebs, when they got on the stage, they took time, was like, you know, Niecy Nash acknowledged her and so did Billy Porter, and just to see her out after the baby, you know, that kind of thing. And there was just some beautiful moments. So I don't want us to get lost. Go back, guys, and watch some highlights of some of these other moments, because there were several important milestones that we saw that we needed in this community that were just overdue. So yes, I do agree with you that we're talking about him instead of talking about some of the beauty of what happened last night.
Absolutely. We got a poll running right now on our YouTube chat. We're asking folks, do you approve of Gerard Carmichael's performance
as the
host of the Golden Globe? So far, 40% of people say yes, they approve. 60% said no, they do not approve.
Wow. Yeah, I think again, discretion is key. Like this
I know. Let me tell you. You see, Zach, you know it, and I know. We're in the space of media. We understand, right? If you're going to stand as a Black person and you're going to stand before Black people and you're going to represent on the behalf of Black people, your representation has to be on point.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And it was like his representation was tone deaf.
Yeah. I think also, Farajii, you bringing up that makes me think about sometimes that generational divide where, I mean, Mr. Carmichael, I believe is right, 35. There are some of the younger generation that do believe that they're not responsible for group representation. That they think, when they go out on the street, unlike so many of us who were kind of taught, you represent everybody, and that's the burden that we carry sometimes into the workplace and other places and in public spaces in general, that, you are a representation of the race for many. And maybe he has this kind of approach where, again, he's just being, quote, himself or representing his own personal views. But unfortunately, like you and I know, people don't see it like that. People see that Black man in that Black body and attribute it to, the rest of us. So I definitely agree with you that it's bigger than him, and he is representative of more than himself. But there is sometimes I hear, within, younger circles that they're like, why do I have to be a representation of everybody? I'm just me. So just throwing that out there.
Well, so, and then I'm glad you brought that up. And here's why it's important for us to have conversations like this. It's even more important for us to understand our history, especially in any space. But since we're talking about arts and entertainment, why? Because you are a part of a link in the chain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Check this out, y'all. The Golden Globes never had a Black host.
It may never have another one. No, I'm not gonna say that.
Let's look at the context of this. The Golden Globes never had a Black host. Now, look, you already know what, if the executive producer, and I really would love to hear what his friend, the executive producer.
I want to know what the white folks saying. I really do. I do.
I kind of want to know, but I want to know the person who recommended him.
Oh Lord.
Y'all ever had a friend y'all recommend for anything, right? For a job, for opportunity, and they F up the opportunity.
Show they behind, and then you
show they behind. They show how they from around the way.
Yeah, they're like, actually, I would never.
And then you like, but guess what? If it's a reflection on you.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, I'm wondering
if I recommended my homeboy, my guy, to be host of a situation, and you came out the way you came out, like Gerard Carmichael did, I will be blowing your phone up the minute you got off stage, bro. What the was that?
I know, right? Yeah, in these spaces, we could be. I don't know. We have to be very conscious of, again, what platform we're being given. I don't know if he understood the gravity of what it meant to be the first host after like a suspended show or a show that wasn't being aired because of issues.
First host after suspended show. And come on, Suzanne.
And then the first black host. And then it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. I haven't read a lot of what mainstream media was saying about him. Definitely saw Black Twitter lighten up last night.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that really got to me. The president, and look, again, this is where you got to have some sense of political consciousness. If the president of the organization say, look, I want to sit down with you. I want to talk about how we plan to move forward from all of the issues of diversity. Let's sit down. Let me bring you into the room. We always talking about being at the table, being in the room, right? So then when the invitation is extended for us to be in the room, and then we shoot down the invitation, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't even know that you could have played a role. And I'm not saying that we don't know the motivations of the Hollywood Foreign Press. We don't know if they were going to actually implement it. But the point is that if you have an opportunity to be in the room, then you could play a role in shaping. Here's how you gain power. You could be in the room in shaping what the next 10 years of the Hollywood Foreign Press's activities are. Right? Here's how you can gain power. They can bring you into the room and say, you know what? We like your ideas. We want you to be the host. Like for the Oscars, Chris Rock is the ongoing host of the Oscars.
Yeah.
They could, you know what I'm saying?
He definitely missed an opportunity there.
You just want to have that lightning bolt effect. You want to get that viral moment, but you're not thinking a long game, bro. You could be the door by which they get more Black faces into the room. But you're not thinking a long game. You're thinking a viral game. You're thinking small. You're not thinking big. And that's the damn problem when you don't know your history. That's the problem when you don't understand your role. That's the problem when you don't see yourself as a link in the chain. You're not thinking long. You're thinking short and self. That's it. That's it. So you got the 500,000. We talking about you today, but guess what? Are you really good for the culture? And no, we just talking. Because next week we're gonna have something else. Hey, you know what I mean? But you dropped the ball in the long game, Gerard. And I don't care if he sees this or not. I mean, we can check him on whatever the case may be. But I'm just simply tired. And I hope people don't think this is revolutionary. Man, he blazed them. So what you talk bad about white people? They still run stuff. They still got power. Your little voice ain't going to do nothing. Because if they can buy you out for $500,000, they can shut you up for $750,000.
Well said. I'm gonna just let that ride because, like I said, right. he would have to come and defend himself at this point. Cause I don't have nothing else to say.
I mean, he can come on the show. Look, I'll have no problem, and I'll say this to that man's face, like, bro, that was coonery, and he can make jokes about me all that he wants to. Guess what, bro? Guess what? I've done this before. I wouldn't have gone if I didn't believe in a mission. If I wasn't serious about making sure that there was some institutional change, then I wouldn't have gotten involved. I don't care how much money it is. Again, that's going back to principles.
Right.
You're not buying me out, son. You're not going to just buy my soul. You look crazy. Man, they doing all this blacksmith. Blah, 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 blah. Here's 500,000. Okay.
Gerard Michael, you got 24 hours to respond to
Cool. 500,000. And then you get on stage and you look like a damn idiot. All right, look. Let me check in with my peoples, man. Janelle, you said Carmichael didn't coon. He is an irreverent comic, not a revolutionary. He stepped all on their toes. Roasting is a part of the assignment. Everyone black ain't our banner to wave.
Okay.
That's true.
Thank you, Janelle.
That's true.
Point. Yeah.
But what's the point of roasting people? You know what I'm saying? Like, I personally, I don't get the point of roasting people in that space.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch his comedy. I've listened to a couple interviews with him telling his story. I know he has had an HBO special, so I'm not sure if those folks knew what they were getting when they hired him. If they were like, you know, if I go back and look at his body of work and it's like, okay, you kind of should have expected this is what he was going to be on. I don't know. I don't have enough knowledge of his kind of,
probably because of his black friend who was executive producing the show was like, no, I got a guy for you. Man.
Again, we need those mentors. We need those door openers that can do those things. But I would have to say the brother.
I'm telling you, his friend blew up his phone. Was like, yo, never again, dog. Never again.
Went from I got the guy to like
I got the guy to next thing you know, you can't even speak in a room now. They'd be like, aren't you the guy?
Don't call me.
Aren't you the guy that recommended Gerard Carmichael?
Yeah,
and you'd be like, no, that wasn't me.
Yeah, no, he definitely left us with quite the impression. And again, I don't know if again Hollywood appreciates this or not. That's what I'm saying. Like the establishment, you say white folk, but I really mean like the Hollywood, like, you know, establishment. What did they think? Like, I don't know. I'm wondering if they thought it was funny and irreverent, and if they thought it was appropriate for the time and place. I'm not sure, but I just saw what like Twitter was not having it.
Let me tell you, Lana, you checked in my sister. You said, bro, you have shut the door. He need to come on the show for Roger.
That's what I'm.
Let him come. Black Twitter gonna light his arse up. If he come, it better be to apologize. I see Janelle's point.
Yeah, I can't say nothing else on his behalf. He got to come defend himself at this point.
Look, and I don't. You know what? Because I saw mixed reviews. I saw some black folks really like praising him. Like, oh man, he did the thing, blah blah blah. Like, that's not revolutionary, bro. That's not good. That's not pushing the culture. We gotta make a decision. If we're not going to do the awards thing, then we're not going to do the awards thing. If we are going to do the awards thing, then we are going to do the awards thing. But we got to remember there are still Black artists out there that have dedicated their lives to arts and entertainment in this present structure. So if we decide not to do the awards thing, then we should have those folks at the table, because we don't want to crap on the time that they spent to perfecting their craft, the achievements that they have made. What you going to tell to Viola Davis, Aunt Angela, Eddie Murphy, Rihanna? They have dedicated their lives to arts and entertainment, particularly Black arts and entertainment. So what are we saying to them? That because Hollywood is so effed up that they shouldn't do their work? No. We need them in those spaces. So it doesn't make sense. Like, we back and forth and back and forth. You look like you were schizophrenic, like you wanted to be there but didn't want to be there, and that's not good for the culture. The culture requires you to make a damn decision. Either you're going to be all in or you're going to be all out. Otherwise, get your ass off the stage. All right.
Mic drop.
Stay with us. It's the culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, for our final conversation today, I wanted to just have a brief discussion with my sister Suzette Speaks, talking about fatherhood. Now, here's the latest situation. Mariah Carey, former ex-wife of Nick Cannon, has now gone to the courts to file for full custody of their twins in light of Nick Cannon being the father of 10 other children. She's allegedly seeking primary custody of twins she shared with Nick Cannon. And it really stems to the fact that she believes that at this point, Cannon cannot be a good father for her twins. So I want to bring back Suzette into the frame as we have this conversation, because I think this is interesting. The reason I wanted to bring this into the discussion is because we got to look at who defines fatherhood. Is it the mother or is it the courts? Because Mariah Carey said that she didn't want, and this is per her representative, she did not want of someone to be flitting in and out of the lives of her children in the way that she believes Nick Cannon will be, because he got all these other children. He got these other commitments and responsibilities. So what do we make of this? Like, how do we define fatherhood? And is she right in requesting full custody? What you think on this, Suzette?
Well, we're talking about Nick Cannon and his babies again, Lord. And so I have to start with, again, I have no kids. And again, it's difficult just, maintaining healthy relationships with your significant other, partner, husband, wife, whoever, as well as between them and your children. So, of course, I always approach this with the theory that we're supposed to be looking at the best interest of a child. And really, based on what is coming out in public reports, again, no one lives with them. We only know what we see in the news, is that she is already the primary custodian of her two children, Moroccan and Monroe. She seems to want to make a point by getting the paperwork to make it official, because it doesn't sound like any of their living arrangements or other kind of day-to-day circumstances are going to change as a matter of this. But she, I think, wants to hold Nick Cannon to account to say, listen, you're not able to meet the expectations of probably herself and possibly her kids when it comes to the time, attention, affection, and just being there that is required of fatherhood. People can produce children, but not everybody can be a father. So I think for her, theoretically, it seems as if it's something more of like a statement than something that will actually change their living circumstances. But I think it's to bring to the fore that he is not, in her eyes, being, as present and is doing an adequate enough job of being there as a father to her children. So I think it's almost like a public statement to ensure that, it is not overlooked in terms of what he appears to be and what is actually really going on for her and her kids' lives on a daily basis.
Well, I mean, and this is interesting too, Suzette, because one, I think we all kind of had the thought that you can't be in 12 children's lives. You can't
from different women in different households.
From different women in different households in different parts of the country.
And you got 10 jobs.
And
you got a lot of obligations, sir.
You got a lot of obligations. Here's my, and this is why I say we should have this conversation culturally, because will this open the door for us to look at this situation and say, okay, if a father doesn't seem like he's fit to do the job of, if a man doesn't seem like he's fit to be a father, then who makes the determination of what fatherhood is, right? And that's why I'm saying, like Mariah Carey is basically saying, you're not fit to be a father because you produce these other children, and so your time is not going to be well spent with the children. So I want full custody, not because you're abusive, but you're not going to be there. Now, I don't know legally how you can say that.
So I don't know if it's saying he's not fit. I think that custodial parents have more say, though, in major decisions concerning children. Now, I'm not a family lawyer practitioner. I'm just going by Florida law, what I remember in general. However, I think it's more about making, again, those, pivotal calls when it comes to the child's education, healthcare, and other, overall well-being, issues of well-being. So I think it might actually give her some more influence and leverage in the future if she needs it to determine, where they're going to be, how long they're going to stay with dad, and other issues that may come up that they could possibly disagree on. So I think it's a matter of her trying to establish that level of influence when it comes to pivotal decisions concerning the children. I don't know if I would go as far as to say it is a statement that you are unfit, but I do think she wants to make the major decisions when it comes to their health and welfare.
So, I mean, I agree with that. But I'm wondering, do you think this is going to become a trend? Because do you think the other baby mamas are going to file for the same thing?
All of them going to file for custodial parent. First of all, I just don't see how he can have, just in terms of the practical nature of his lifestyle.
Yeah.
Full custody of any of his kids.
All right, let me do this very quickly, Suzette. let's take it out of the Nick Cannon realm, right? Because there's still
no
a
Nick,
lot
no
of
Nick,
people,
okay.
because people think Nick Cannon is a billionaire. Nick Cannon got all these resources that he could do all of these things, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have enough time to unpack that. However, I do want to put, there are Black men in our community that do have multiple children in an uncommitted way, right? And that's why I'm saying, like, does it open the door for us to have a different conversation about who defines fatherhood? Because we see I know brothers who had 8, 9 children, and they may be in the same city, they may not be in the same city, but they're not present. They're not present, and I'm wondering, do Black women are gotten to the point where he's like, you know what, I want full custody because you're not there. And I mean, we don't have enough time to talk about the implications of that, not just from a legal side, but just from a family science side of things. That if you're not there for your children, it's hard to be a father.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack. We don't even have enough time to get into it. But just on the legal side of it, who determines the level of, what should I say, control in terms of decision making and visitation and health and welfare decisions is the court. If you don't have an agreement with you and that significant other and father or mother of that child, it is ultimately going to be up to a judge who gets to have the ultimate say, who gets to spend more time. And it can be very difficult for the person who does not have primary custody of a child to influence that child the way they want to. So unfortunately, when we end up in situations like this, we take it out of our own hands and we put it in the court of law. That's why we have paternity issues and family courts set up, so that hopefully we can get the most, what should I say? It's not even a great outcome, just the most suitable outcome for the best interest of the child is what we always have to remember. So maybe, like I said, Mariah doesn't need more money. She doesn't really need more time because she's already taken care of it. Okay, not Nick Cannon, but in general, people want their cake and want to eat it too, but it doesn't work like that when it comes to who's covering healthcare costs, who's covering insurance costs. Again, what type of school they're going to. Are they going to play in the band? The pickup and drop off. I know people who have custody agreements right now that are 50-50, where it's 1 week with one parent and 1 week with the other, 52 weeks a year. Is that in the best interest of a child? I don't judge them. There are people who I know and respect and love, but that's the best thing. The court, it was like, okay, they're equally as capable. They have the same, or similar income, stability in their homes. Why not give them half? I was like, well, can we split it up a little bit more, 3/4 of a month and this and that? But instead, you were getting all of these people that are kind of like being torn. So it's a very difficult situation, but the court will decide.
It's a very, very difficult situation. And we're going to have to see, because if Mariah is sending out warning shots to the other baby mothers, she's just letting them know, Suzette, like, girl, y'all need to follow me because I know this guy. I really know this guy.
If you have that primary custodial, money come with that.
His money ain't that long. Said Ming Lee said his money must be long from Wildin' Out. It ain't that long.
Listen, America's Got Talent, Wildin' Out, the movie residuals,
the money ain't that long, man. I don't care how
hardest working man. I respect his hustle. Please. Hardest working man.
You gotta have that. You gotta have Jeff Bezos money. 12 children, different states. Did all of them women? Mariah Carey is asking for money. She's not asking. She's like, I got my own money. But the other women, please. They want $30,000 a month.
More. No, for her to try to make this publicly on the record again, I think there must be more to the story. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors, but
absolutely. My sister Suzette Speaks. Y'all can check her out each and every Wednesday here on The Culture. Make sure y'all check her out on her YouTube show. Suzette Speaks. She's been having some dynamic shows.
Go subscribe.
Subscribe to her shows, man. She's been talking about everything from Haiti to the Tyler Lewis situation that we talked about here on this show, and so much more. Make sure y'all go to her YouTube page, Suzette Speaks, and just subscribe and be a strong supporter for her work that she's doing there. Suzette, thank you so much for being on. And of course, for being so good for the culture.
Thank you, Farajii, and shout out to all the culture crew. I've been enjoying the comment section. Has been fire today, mind you. I haven't been able to get to every one of them, but it's always a pleasure. Thank y'all for coming over to support as well. Look up Suzette Speaks on YouTube and subscribe.
There it is right there, folks. Suzette
I appreciate it.
And Suzette be changing up her look every time she's on the show, folks. So tune in for that.
We try. You know how we do.
There we go.
Thank you. See you guys next week.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Let me just share with you very quickly the latest on our poll. What we got here? Because folks have checked in. Let me see if with the latest on our poll, I think I saw it was like 34, 38, 68. I think there was more than 60% of people said that did not approve of Gerard Carmichael's performance at the Golden Globes last night. And look, y'all know what it is. Yep. It was no, 61%. 38% said no, they did not approve. 38% said yes, they approved. So y'all felt like how I felt. Coonery. Anyway, we appreciate all of you for being a part of the conversation and voting in our poll. Folks, stay tuned. Up next is RMU Roland Martin Unfiltered. But make sure y'all go to blackstarnetwork.com. Do your due diligence. Support Black media like never before. We need your financial support. We need your support in sharing the content as we go online and on air. And, of course, we need you to download the app for free. Tell your friends and family about us and definitely let us know how we can continue to improve the service. But check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. Also follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And follow yours truly, me, Farajii Muhammad. You can follow me on The Real Farajii on Instagram and Farajii on Twitter as well. That's going to do it for me. RMU is up next. But as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon, family. Peace.